no messages. Nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore. A professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks. All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830, WCRN Radio Central. Let's do some housekeeping. You can join the conversation over the next hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Our text line is up and running, so you can text the show just like you would anyone else. It appears on the screen here in the studio in real time, and that is 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. And of course, you can also listen to WCRN AM 830 on the TuneIn app, like thousands of other radio stations. We do stream live to the TuneIn app 24/7. Great feature. I love that. You can take the station anywhere or tell Alexa to play WCRN, and she'll do it, no questions asked. I'm also streaming the show, so you can watch and listen to the show from the Cameo studio. So the Cameo cam is on. You can do that on the station's Facebook page, YouTube channel, or you can do it on my social media platforms, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, X, Facebook, and yes, live to Rumble. These are all happening. Multiple ways to listen and watch and participate, of course. And don't forget, the show is turned into a podcast, and you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. JoeMangiaShow.com is where everything's posted, and also the blog site, so you can see different posts and follow me at Joe Mangi Show. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Today, back at HQ Flying the Board, he'll get you set up and into the studio for two-way talking conversation. Thank you, Ted. Now, we have to talk about the Virginia vote yesterday, and this is such an aggravating thing in the sense of gerrymandering. If you've listened to this show, me at all, watched or read my stuff, at this point, gerrymandering should be a thing of the past. And redistricting purely to favor one political party, to me, is borderline, if not criminal, in the actions. We have AI, and this is one of the rare instances where I would support AI drawing the districts, because there's no, of course, you're going to tell the program, do not consider party affiliation, do not consider voter history at all, just simply divide based on the population. That's how districts are supposed to be drawn, right? Our Congress people are supposed to represent a certain number of people within a range in a country, and that's why when the census is done and population shifts happen, then states gain or lose congressional seats. So if we tell AI, just draw it, how many people, and this is the other thing, I do believe, that for purposes of representation in Congress, it has to be based on legal citizens of the United States. We've seen blue states trying to affect the representation in Congress with people who are illegally here. Those aren't constituents, and they shouldn't be part of that calculus. I think we should track them in the calculus so that we understand how many illegal people are living in the country and where they're concentrated. That's information I think we should have, but not apply it to the formula for representation of the Electoral College, obviously. So yesterday, Virginia voters narrowly approved this constitutional amendment in a special election. Let that sink in. Special election, constitutional state amendment, just so this measure would allow Democratic control, generally assemble, or they call it General Assembly in Virginia, to redraw congressional districts mid-decade outside the normal once every 10-year process, after I just made reference to, for the census, for this purpose. Now, it was a close vote, 51 yes, 49 no. And if the new map survives expected legal challenges at the Virginia Supreme Court, it will take effect for the 2026 midterm elections and 2028 and 2030, for that matter. Democrats drew the map themselves, bypassing the bipartisan redistricting commission that Virginia voters overwhelmingly approved in 2020 to reduce partisan gamesmanship. So Massachusetts isn't the only state where our elected officials absolutely ignore what the voters and the people, their citizens, their constituents, the people we elect to represent our wants in our elected bodies. Virginia politicians are the same ilk. And if you don't think that what Virginia is doing isn't criminal, you need to think on it. The result: a map that heavily favors Democrats, potentially turning Virginia's current 6-5 Democratic edge in the U.S. House into a 10-1 Democratic advantage. If organized crime was doing something similar to this, they would be being looked at for racketeering and conspiracy, extortion, and probably a lot of other charges I can't think of at the moment. So critics, including Republicans and good government groups, for that matter, call it one of the most aggressive partisan gerrymanders in recent memory. Districts were creatively carved. Where have we seen that? I mean, Peter Blute has talked about this many times over the years. McGovern's, now what is McGovern's district? I think Peter said it used to be called Ivy League because it went, from Dartmouth to Princeton, and you're touching New Hampshire on one end, and you're down in New Bedford or Fall River on the other end of the district. How do you get that? So you see what I'm saying? When you get and this is what they have now. What they did is they took some of the population in the north part of Virginia, which is it's basically the Washington bubble lives in North Virginia. And I've seen this as a senior fellow with a think tank down there. And, I go to our headquarters for Frontiers of Freedom Institute. George Landreth, the president of FOF, lives in Virginia. So did Dr. Larry. And they're in these neighborhoods I'm talking about. They're among very, very much Democrat Washington bubble population in Northern Virginia. And what they did is they kind of pulled that very heavy Democrat down, creating these weird shapes for the districts so that they can spread that concentrated Democrat population, Washington bubble people, kind of throughout the state. And they couldn't get 10 for 10. I mean, when you get to Southern Virginia, they had to kind of leave one little possible bastion of Republicans there. And this is what I'm saying. If we, because you can't get people to do it. We did, or I should say Virginia did, right? Virginia overwhelmingly approved 6 years ago a nonpartisan committee, a redistricting commission, I think it's called, to do this. In the legislature in Virginia, just ignored that. Did this. That's criminal. But if you told AI, just here are the addresses. And our census says 3 people live at this address, 6 people at this, 1 person lives here. And all it needs to know is where people live and how many people live at each address. That's all it needs to know. And then you tell it, okay, draw districts to represent about 750,000 people per district. And it will do it. And it will say, stop the district here, pick up the next one. So first congressional district is this. You have 750,000 people here. Second district has, and it doesn't matter the voting history, the party affiliation. That's true representation by election, is it not? So you've got the Republicans and you got respected good government types of groups, call it the most aggressive partisan gerrymandering in recent memory. Districts were carved Democrats framed the vote as necessary response to Republican-led redistricting efforts in other states, encouraged, of course, by Trump. Republicans call it a raw power grab that undermines the will of Virginia voters who wanted fair maps, not politically drawn districts designed to entrench one party. This is crazy. What say you on this? 508-871-7000 to join the conversation, 508-871-7000. We're going to take our first break here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show and AM 830 WCRN. Don't forget our text line is running at 617-297-8388. But stick with us. We'll be back on the other side. 2 minutes, 10 seconds, folks. Okay, maybe, did I get, there we go.
WCRN.
If you've ever worried about a parent or a loved one eating well, here's a simple solution. Heart to Home Meals delivers great tasting, ready-to-eat frozen meals made with seniors in mind. With over 150 choices, it's easy to find meals that fit different tastes and dietary needs. There's no subscription and no minimum order. And delivery is always free. Heart to Home Meals, a smart, comforting way to make sure good food is always close by. HeartToHomeMeals.com.
Looking for a station that brings you all sides of the story? Tune in to 50,000-watt powerhouse WCRN, where the left and the right meet in the middle. Whether you lean left, lean right, or just want to stay informed, WCRN has you covered with diverse voices, lively debates, and thought-provoking discussions. From politics and health to pop culture, you'll hear it all right here. Radio Central, where opinions from both sides come together for the conversations that matter. From the center of the dial, the center of New England, and the center of information, AM 830, WCRN, Radio Central.
Tired of rush doctor's visits? Are you finding it tough to get a doctor's appointment? And when you finally do, are you in and out before you know it? Did your doctor take the time to ask about your diet or exercise routine? Did they order the right lab tests? And how do you know if these are the labs you need and how to interpret them? Discover the freedom of ordering your own lab tests. Phil George, clinical biochemist and health coach, can guide you on which blood tests to order. Customized to your personal health goals, Phil's extensive training ensures that you receive the best advice on interpreting your lab results and understanding their implications. Plus, by ordering labs on your own, you'll pay far below insurance prices. Looking for an alternative to conventional medicine? Phil George can help you navigate your health journey with a personalized approach. Just email Phil at philgeorge@charter.net for a free consultation. Your health and well-being are within reach, and it starts with the right guidance. Don't miss this opportunity to take control of your health. Reach out today and embark on a path to better health with Phil George.
WCRN, where the left and the right meet in the middle. Whether you lean left, lean right, or just want to stay informed, WCRN has you covered with diverse voices, lively debates, and thought-provoking discussions. You'll hear it all right here. Radio Central.
Bad decisions limit future options. Stop adversity from becoming stress. Listen to The Float Line with host Rick Hughes, Sundays at 9 a.m. on AM 830 WCRN for inspiration, education, all without manipulation. The Float Line, Sundays at 9 a.m.
WCRN Radio is thrilled to bring back a legendary voice, and now you can help tell the stories. Paul Harvey captivated millions with his unique style and unmistakable voice. By sponsoring the rest of the story, your brand can become a part of this rich tradition, and it links your business with a program that people love and trust. So don't miss this unique opportunity to grow your business while becoming part of something truly special. For sponsorship details, just go to WCRNradio.com.
Dr. Satya Mitra has journeyed from a childhood of poverty and homelessness to a successful career as a financial advisor, motivational speaker, and community leader. Now inspired by his guru, he uses his experiences to positively affect the lives of underprivileged people. We strive to house our blindness, poverty, homelessness, female empowerment, and good citizenship initiatives within the Joy Guru Humanitarian Center. If you wish to contribute or know deserving persons or initiatives that could use our assistance, please contact us at 508-641-8441.
Ziti's Italian Ristorante is where to make Mother's Day a lasting memory. Show your mother that you understand. You finally understand. A mother's love is just like a fine meal prepared by an authentic Italian trattoria. Ziti's menu will offer your mother a selection of ethereal Epicurean delights. Come eat at Ziti's restaurant on Route 9 East in Westboro. Your mother will love it. Make it Mother's Day at Ziti's Italian Ristorante, Route 9 East in Westboro.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Radio Central. My apologies. I called for a break when it wasn't the right time. That's on me, folks. 508-871-7000. And, of course, our text line at 617-297-8388. You can text that like you text anybody, and it happens. All right, going into the break there. So I'm talking about this thing in Virginia. And it's just, at this point, folks, we can remove the partisan, the biased nature of this just out of it. And no one has been able to give me any kind of logical reason why at this point we just don't have either AI or a computer algorithm figure this out. So think about this. To get these bizarre shapes, and in this case, it was Democrats in Virginia just ignored what the voters said about the bipartisan commission, and then put a big map in front of them and did all self-serving interests to stack the state legislature in their party's favor. How is that not criminal? It certainly isn't moral, ethical, or fair by any means. But see, the fight isn't over on this because legal challenges are in fact pending. And it's part of a larger national redistricting battle going on, right? And that's headed right here into the midterms. And we know these midterms are so important. And history dictates that the party in the Oval typically loses the midterms. So nature usually says, hey, you know what, we're gonna limit, and this is part of checks and balances. I get that. We're gonna limit the power of the Oval a little bit because we're not going to give them, Republican or Democrat, a Congress to go in their favor. But we're talking about people with TDS, people who cannot put the good of the company, the good of the country, the good of its citizens and constituents over their hatred for Trump. Because I can give you dozens, if not hundreds, examples of that. And you could, if at all, give me very few examples of Democrats or left-leaning people who have TDS who can't do that. I mean, just look at some of the do we call them X now, or tweets or what have you, but posts from some Democrats who seem to be cheering for Iran because it's Trump's actions there, even though every president from after Jimmy Carter to Trump have all publicly taken the position Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. I don't think we spend enough time on the fact that we're recognizing a government that is really religious zealots that did a coup and performed an act of war on us in 1979 with the embassy. Would you want the Pope running the United States of America? We're going to get into the Pope and Trump standoff a little later in the show. But what say you on this? This is common sense accountability. It's old-fashioned gerrymandering dressed up as fairness? No. 508-871-7000. And what they passed, very little, 51-49. So it could have gone the other way, but still could go to the court. Now, unfortunately, I'm assuming, from past decisions, a lot of times the court is also much of the ilk in that area. So the new map's impact shifts Virginia from a competitive 6 Democrat, 5 Republican delegation. I would call that a fair purple state, wouldn't you? to this potential 10-1 Democratic advantage. And critics describe it as extreme bacon-mandering. I guess this is the new term, right? Bacon-mandering. Stretching that heavy Democratic Northern Virginia suburbs, as I described, into the rural Republican areas to dilute conservative votes. And I've driven around this Northern Virginia neighborhoods, and beautiful neighborhoods. I mean, the amount of wealth that is concentrated, outside that, the proper downtown DC area, but also DC. I mean, beautiful homes and stuff there, but a lot of DC bubble people live in Virginia, and the wealth is there because you don't just have members of Congress, you've got lobbyists and people just with a lot of wealth. I mean, it's beautiful neighborhoods there. Now, in 2020, Virginia voters, they strongly supported this bipartisan redistricting commission. And why was it such an overwhelming support? Because it was supposed to end the partisan map drawing. Now the Democrats just overrode all that. Showed no concern, consideration, or cared that the people who voted them in to represent them again, we're not democracy, right? We've been through this in the past. We're elected republic. We elect these people to do the daily work for us in our stead in our legislative bodies. But they're supposed to be taking their cues from us, are they not? So when the Democrats argue this is restoring fairness, encountering alleged GOP gerrymandering pushed by Trump in states like Texas, they say it levels the playing field for 2026 midterms. Now, there are redistrictings in states that have been put on hold, waiting for SCOTUS and all that. But is it Virginia's or any other state's job to worry about what another state is doing? Is that justified in this? What say you on that? Because you've got the Republicans saying, hey, this is a blatant power grab. And one of the worst examples of partisan gerrymandering, it disenfranchises almost half the state's voters by rigging districts so that the Republicans basically have almost no chance in 10 of the 11 seats because they altered gerrymandering, the shapes of the districts, just for that purpose. Look, gerrymandering is wrong, no matter which party does it. It just is at this point. Well, it always has been. I mean, yes, Massachusetts, we get to keep the that distinction of it being named after a Massachusetts politician, but it's just wrong no matter how you cut it. And the right way is fair, transparent. It's a natural process. I mean, we don't even have to really use AI. If you just had fair, nonpartisan people looking at the map and the population and drawing the lines to equal it out, that would work too. But literally, the census information is available. You punch that into the algorithm, punch it into AI, and just say, here are all the addresses and how many people live at each address. Just draw the districts up. And then you live with that. And the chips fall where they may. And you have to get back to people voting for you. Well, first of all, people voting for your party, because your party's platform isn't, we're not Trump or Trump sucks. You really got to get beyond that. So your party's platform has to be something that voters can relate to. And then you as a candidate or assembly person in this case have to convince voters that you're the person to represent them. You do a good enough job and enough people agree and are confident that you will represent them the way they want to be represented, you'll get elected and your party will have the majority, even if it's by one. That's the way this should be done. So they tie this to election integrity. And this directly affects voter representation and it trusts the system. When maps are rigged, it fuels cynicism. It undermines the principles of one person, one vote. It's just under fair districts. It's just, I can't stand this. The whole gerrymandering and, of course, voter integrity, obviously, are things that really get to me if you are any kind of person that listens or follows. They just, the gerrymandering, it should be illegal to do this. And that's what Congress should do. Of course, they're not going to do that because both parties use it. Both parties. I'm not just dumping on Democrats. Republicans do the best they can for that as well. But when you have a state already slanted one way, that's the party that gets to decide this in that way. And that's just wrong. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. 508-871-7000. So shifting gears here. And this is, I thought I'd bring this up and talk about this because there's so much news and everything's going so fast that you might not have caught the fact that the FBI has captured 8 of the 10 most wanted in 1 year. Now, the most wanted list, I think it came out. I don't remember the history on it. I think it was after in the 50s or something. And it came out, okay, these are the most wanted people. And some of these people have been on the most wanted list sometimes for decades. And it's kind of a political thing, you put up in the post office. Every post office has FBI's most wanted up there. And, you've had people, Al Capone or whatever on it. But look, here's some just good news on this. On the law and order front. Since Trump returned to the Oval and Kash Patel took the helm at the FBI, federal agents have captured 8 of the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives. Just 1 year they were able to do this. Now, these aren't low-level offenders. I know it's kind of a PR thing for the FBI, but you got to be a pretty bad dude to get up there, right? Low-level offenders don't make the top 10 list. So we're talking about rapists and murderers, terrorists, narco traffickers, violent gang members, and these people usually been on the run for years, and some for decades. But under the direction from the top here, the FBI is back to doing, for the most, in a lot of cases here, what it's supposed to do, hunting down the worst of the worst and delivering justice. That's a lot of what the FBI is supposed to be doing. And they're doing it. Now, compare that to the previous administration. And it's apples and oranges here, right? In 4 full years under Biden, the FBI captured far fewer. By some accounts, only a fraction as many from the top 10 list. That's just not what the FBI was concentrating on. The Bureau was too often distracted by partisan investigations, softer and crime policies, even DEI, that left dangerous fugitives walking free in America, in the communities. In the communities that these top 10 people are fugitives, criminals, were allowed to stay free in, well, the communities paid the prices, right? Now, with a very serious, results-driven leadership, the focus is back where it belongs, in public safety. President Trump, Director Kash Patel are restoring credibility and effectiveness to the FBI and the Department of Justice. When law enforcement prioritizes catching real criminals over political targets, the American people win. After all, that was created for a reason. The top 10 list, the posting of pictures and wanted pictures in, police stations, post offices, everywhere across the country, was for a real reason. Now, technology has changed. How many of us actually go to a post office much these days? Or hopefully police station. But technology has replaced that. I don't know about you, but I see stuff come over my Facebook feed all the time. And there's so many ring cameras and surveillance cameras that police departments or citizen groups are posting that this person committed some, I'm talking, I've localized this obviously. But yes, you can go online now to the FBI site or DOJ site and look up the most wanted criminals, see their pictures, last known locations, the crime they've committed. So technology has replaced the wanted poster that we used to put up in the post office. Sure, we can do it that way. Now, with this serious driven leadership going on, the focus is back where it belongs, on that public safety. And this impressive record proves simple truth. Strong, no-nonsense leadership delivers safer streets and a stronger nation. And the results are undeniable. 8 out of 10 within a year. So what say you on this? Does this show what happens when you put competent people in charge with the right directive and right mission statement who actually want to enforce the law? 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. It's 508-871-7000. So in just 1 year, Donald Trump returned to the White House, I should say, and Kash Patel took the helm at the FBI as director. Agents captured 8 of the top 10. And again, some of the most dangerous people. That's good. Now, we just had a change, right, with the Attorney General. And I wonder about that. And I wonder about that because was Pam Bondi's purpose specific? I mean, there were a lot of, there's several grand juries in Florida several months ago, and that's all going to break. And I'm wondering if that was supposed to be her role, and it was designed for her to move on after a certain point. And Kash Patel has just recently come out to talk about arrests coming connected to the 2020 election. So are we going to see a lot of arrests and turmoil very shortly in that respect? 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's go to the phone lines. Ken's waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what say you?
Good afternoon, Joe. Virginia is Virginia.
Yeah.
The rules are the rules, and our opponents are going to fight fiercely. If we want a future, we have to too. That's just the way it is. They will pull any stunt, every stunt to acquire power because they want to destroy the nation and us controlling it. All right. That's the serious fact.
Ken, I think, I'm assuming you probably agree that these midterms and who is controlling Congress after the midterm elections has more meaning than probably any other time in our history so far, only because the moment, if the Democrats become the majority in the House and they replace the leaderships in these committees, how long, how many, never mind how long, it's going to be almost immediate, but how many articles of impeachment are going to get filed over just the BS? We saw it in the first Trump term, right? And the fact that, he pulled it, or he didn't pull it out, but he didn't get convicted in the Senate by such a small margin. It's scary because it's not really based, because most of the criticism that's thrown towards Trump is no different than former presidents have made, right? When they're getting on him about Iran and so forth. But nobody had a problem with all of the bombing and the drone hits and everything that Barack Obama did. That was Jesus-like to them. So if the Democrats take control, will the Trump administration be able to be effective in the second half of the second term?
Obviously less so.
Yeah.
No ifs, buts. But they have accomplished so much already in 15 months and will for another 6 or 7.
Yeah.
that if the public doesn't want success, then it will fail. It's really that simple.
But here's the thing. Typically, voter turnout in midterms, and especially we've seen when Trump's not on the ticket, and I mean literally on the ticket, name printed, that support that supports Trump and realizes he needs to be back in the Oval, that isn't there. Doesn't this come down to turn out the vote that the Republicans have to really get the message that by not showing up to vote, you are voting for the Democrats to take control of Congress, or the House anyway. And that, I think that's the positioning, that's the messaging the Republicans have to put out there is, for all intents and purposes, Trump is on the ballot. His ability to effectively govern as president is going to depend on these midterms.
Of course, naturally. But we don't know. See, there's a lot of people who, well, yeah, I kind of like his policies. Oh, but the tweet. And so,
I thought I was hoping we all got over that and we could separate the deeds, the record, the success from the tweets, from the personality. And that's where I came down on this. That, yes, do I like everything the guy tweets out or how he says things? No. Do I like how he says some things? Absolutely. But what I look at are the policies. And when we went into this 7, almost now coming up to 8 weeks ago in Iraq, why? Because we opened negotiations and the first thing they want to throw in our face is that they have enough enriched uranium for 11 nuclear bombs. That should scare the bejesus out of everybody, folks. And it's like people are cheering for Iran in this war or this conflict.
Joe, the vast majority of people are working right now. They're not hearing what you're saying at 6 o'clock or 6:30 at night. Not to say that they all watch that, but if they go on the social media, it's even worse.
Yeah.
So it's an uphill battle, and you don't give up.
Yeah.
Period.
And I should remind folks now, because I'm on the Sunday mornings now. Peter has taken a leave to take care of his health, so I'm on 9:30 to noon Sundays now. So folks, you can please keep tuning in to that time slot, and hopefully we can reach some people there as well. Because yes, a lot of people are actually at work right now, and I see that based on streaming and so forth. A lot of people who hear this actually hear it later in the day or tomorrow. They'll hear this show. So thank you for that. But I get your point, Ken, and that's why I say the Republicans have to get the messaging right on this. And that's all they should be talking about is midterms are so important. This is what's going to happen. If not, you need to show up. And if you can't vote that day, then take advantage of that absentee ability, right? That we have. I am worried about the midterms because there's a pretty good chance Democrats will take the House.
Yes, but they won't have such a big margin. And so, for instance, the whole thread about the impeachments. Okay, if that's all they want to do for 21 months leading up to the November election of 28. Go right ahead. Make my day.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, we have to start sticking it in their face and say, you're just being stupid. They're not fine guys that are on the right of center.
Yeah, but history has shown us that people on the left don't care about that because in their world and bubble, that bubble they live in that self-feeding social media that they live in, they still think they're right. They still think this is good stuff and common sense. I mean, just watch the stuff on social media. Watch these talking heads on CNN, MSN Now. A lot of them, it seems like they don't even have a working understanding of a constitution and or how things work. Have you noticed this? I mean, forget The View. I don't even count something like that. You know what I'm saying? They're absolutely clueless, and that's just not on government. Didn't Joy Behar say something about Jesus never declared himself the Messiah? Or she seems to always be putting it in her foot in her mouth there. All right, final thought there, Ken.
Oh, I'm just glad I don't have to watch the stuff you just described. I catch 10-second conservative commentator piecing, but please, for your mental health, stay away.
Yeah,
you can.
yeah. And I can't read the comments. I mean, when they text directly, I got to read them, but I try not to read the comments on anything that's posted or shared on the Facebook page because I don't have that kind of time to do it. I just usually respond, Ken, with the station's call letters, frequency, call in phone number, and say, if you have a problem with what I said, that's the time. If you're going to aggravate me, I might as well be paid to talk to you. Thank you, Ken. Appreciate the call. Always good call. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available. So why can Trump and Patel and this DOJ do this and Biden's couldn't? Kind of simple, right? Leadership matters. Trump appointed people who actually believe in enforcing the law without apology, or maybe without over political correctness playing a role. Kash Patel, and Attorney General at the time, Pam Bondi, along with the entire team at the Justice Department, they were focused on the results, not the headlines or ideology. And I'm seeing, I mean, somebody took off on Kash Patel because of that footage, him in the locker room with the hockey team, and he was having a good time, and the guy's, he's spilling the beer and he's jumping around. Hey, this is Massachusetts. That was extremely mild compared to our sports fans here. Now, Kash Patel is known to be this huge hockey fan and stuff, and he is in the locker room and he's having a wonderful time, and somehow we're supposed to think he's unfit for that job. It's just, see what I'm saying? They're grasping at straws and they're coming up with this absolutely crazy stuff. We got a text 873. How about the Alabama lawsuit against the Southern Poverty Fraud Center? Yes. I don't have notes on that. I did see that. That's in about time. And again, I haven't done the deep dive and the research on this, but my understanding, I'll run it down in callers at 508-871-7000 if you've got the real details to this case. But from what I understand, there's very left out there Southern Poverty Law Firm thing. They were actually in millions of dollars that they would collect from donors, but it was really under false narratives, pretense, right? Because they were funneling the money they were getting from the donors to help the activists that they were supposed to be fighting to do the fighting. And they were funneling money, and laundering is what it is when you're funneling it through prepaid cards and things of that nature, so that they could drum this all up. I will do the deep dive on the suit, I should say the charge is not a suit, it's the DOJ, on the Southern Poverty Law Center there. And maybe we'll do that on Sunday's show. Thanks for bringing that up. It is a great story, not one that I prepped. I see it unfolding. I need to read multiple articles on this stuff before I start to talk about it so I can understand what I am talking about. But thanks for bringing that up. We will get into that. So this help wanted. I keep saying help wanted. The wanted people from the FBI top list has had great success under this administration's in this term. And Biden's DOJ and FBI had very different priorities. And the numbers on that don't lie, right? Much fewer than 10 captures over 4 years. Same top 10 list, maybe a couple people in 4 years. In the first year of Trump's second term here, 8 of the 10 arrested, found and arrested. So when the emphasis shifts from catching real bad guys to internal political investigations, we lose. Public loses. And this is just classic common sense, guys, right? You get more of what you reward and prioritize. Trump is rewarding results and accountability. The prior administration rewarded other things. And we paid for it. The streets paid the price on this. And I got to tell you something. I've been in that, right? Over 40 years as a private investigator, second generation firm here. I can tell you there's criminals notice when law enforcement means business. And they also, the converse of that is they know, we look at Philadelphia, what do they call him, Uncle Larry there or something? Or you got New York, a DA down there. Where they know the communities that they're not going to get in trouble in. Criminals would behave very differently in, say, North Carolina or Louisiana than they are going into Manhattan. Why? Look at Perry. Guy steps up, protects a car full of people on a subway trapped by a crazy man threatening to end his life, end their life, and he gets charged. So the criminal element notices when they can push it and they can get away. And they look at these protesters in the summer of love. And I got to point to the two things. One is during COVID, some reason, I guess the virus was okay if you were protesting for the left and for certain things, but if you tried to go to church, the virus would attack everybody, right? Remember the double standard on that? And then you've got all those people who burned a police station to the ground in Minnesota. You've got the looting and the damage that was done, and who really got, who paid for that? Either they weren't charged, or if they got charged, they ended up with the slap on the wrist. So the American people deserve an FBI that hunts the most dangerous fugitives, not one distracted by partisan warfare. So Trump and Patel are delivering exactly that. And should every administration be judged by whether they actually make our streets safer or by how well they play the Washington game? Sorry, when it comes to crime, law and order, it's on your ability to catch real bad guys. And a lot of these FBI agents, special agents, under the Biden administration and DOJ that played those political partisan games have been either reassigned or demoted or straight up fired, actually. This has happened. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. 508-871-7000. Text line 617-297-8388. Text it like you would anyone else. So we had this, little online, feud with the Pope and Trump. Now, remember, Pope Leo, he's a Chicago guy, first American Pope. And I was wondering how that's going to look. How does that convert to the Vatican and the Roman Catholic Church? And that this Pope, tell me how this makes sense to have a Muslim prayer room in the Vatican. Doesn't that just like a scratch on the record? What are you doing? How does that make sense in any way, shape, or form? But let's talk about this whole dust up, right, between Pope Leo and Trump over Iran. It started when the Pope, again, first American pontiff, grew up in the Chicago area, seems to have that kind of leftist Chicago politics, apparently, He publicly criticized the United States and Israel actions against the Iranian regime. The real life Handmaid's Tale regime, right? The Muslim regime that imposes Sharia law, where women are treated as chattel, where homosexuals are thrown off buildings, burned alive, or stoned. Women are beaten for wearing the hijab, not even not wearing the hijab, but wearing it wrong. He called Trump's strong warnings about Iran truly unacceptable and urged an off-ramp to the conflict, framing it as a moral issue for innocent civilians. Apparently no problem with Iranians or the regime, I should say, just hunting down and executing tens of thousands of their citizens for hanging basically teenagers or very young people for wanting freedom or speaking out. President Trump pushed back, and he did it hard. He called the Pope weak on crime and terrible on foreign policy. Now, Catholic Church has been pretty tough on crime over the years, haven't they? But let's bring it to 2026. Weak on crime and terrible on foreign policy. Yeah. Made it clear he's not a big fan. He pointed out the obvious. If the Pope wants to lecture on morality, start with the real tyrants. Trump went in, he's when asked about Iran's executions of protesters, he said, hey, tell that to the Pope. And I think at that moment in time, that was a great answer or a great thing for Trump to say when he was asked about that. Because the Pope had just come out with that stupidity, right? So tell that to the Pope. Again, wrong tyrant. You're letting Iran have a pass, their behavior and so forth. Hey, where was the Catholic Church in World War II with the Nazis too, by the way? So the Pope has since tried to kind of walk that back a bit. And the recent statement, well, it was in Africa aboard the papal plane. He said he's not trying to debate the president, that his remarks about tyrants weren't aimed at Trump personally, and that it's not in my interest at all. No kidding. Not in your interest at all. And he made the point, because I saw this clip while he was on the papal plane, that a speech he was referencing, he said, was actually crafted a couple weeks before. And he wanted to, and again, he was backtracking a lot of this. He's very much trying to say that wasn't aimed at Trump, and I didn't write that or craft that speech for that. It was written before all this came out. And then that line, not in my interest at all. But he still vows to keep preaching peace. Well, you are the Pope. But the exchange highlights, I guess, a bigger problem here. Your job is to guide the souls of Roman Catholics and not to tell the President of the United States how to govern the country. That was our job as citizens who voted him in and gave him that task. And this is why I constantly say to you guys, look, we just always gloss over the fact that Iran is being run by these imams in caves somewhere. And we all act like that's acceptable and normal. And because they don't have free elections, they don't have the freedoms there. They have Sharia law. They're gunned down or arrested, tortured, and hung, or worse, for just trying to ask for fairness and freedom in their country. So that's the same reason I call out the regime in Iran. It's run by religious zealots, not normal thinking persons who stormed our embassy in 1979, held those 52 American hostages for 444 days. That was an act of war. Have we not been at war since 1979 with Iran, if you look at it that way? And they have American blood on their hands ever since. And they've taken, I think the count's a little over 1,500 through their terror proxies. They brutalized their own citizens. They crushed dissent. And now they're preparing to execute Bita Hamatia, the first female protester, sentenced to death for the January 2026 anti-regime uprising in Tehran. Where is the Pope's loud, forceful condemnation of that? Of the regime's terrorism against its own people? Did I miss that? Because I would think the Pope, any Pope, would be well within the Pope scope of employment to say, that's not good. Isn't the murder there right on those commandments somewhere? I think it might be the first one. And while we're asking these awkward questions, where was the Vatican in World War II again with the Nazis were committing horrors? History shows a lot of careful silence from the church then. And why does the Vatican, this is the other thing, remember this whole thing about criticizing Trump and the former Pope too, about immigration, talking to us about immigration, which means that what, all of a sudden you don't recognize sovereign states, sovereign borders for some reason? So why does the Vatican have those massive walls, some of them 40 feet high, surrounding it, if they're so opposed to strong borders and security? So Pope Leo took his Chicago politics straight to the Vatican, but the world doesn't need another cleric playing statesman. Look what we get in Iran when we allow that. It needs a moral clarity where it actually counts, starting with the theocratic barbarism in Tehran. So that's that. All right, folks. To clarify, so I will be on Wednesdays and Sundays. Sundays 9:30 to noon. We have that great new show, The Float, from 9 to 9:30. So I pick up Peter Blute's old time at 9:30. We go to noon. Everything applies the same there. And I'll do Wednesdays for now as we go forward. And we'll have some other programming changes as we go. We'll make you well aware of. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast of the show. And you can do that wherever you get your podcasts. So that could be Spotify, iHeartRadio, Tuned In. It could be Google Play. Go to my website, joemangiashow.com, or you can get there by going to tjmshow.com as well. During the day, during the week, I do post TOFIs. That's today's observation for you on some of these topics. So please go there, follow that. But this has to wrap up the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks. I'll be back Sunday morning at 9:30 on AM 830 WCRN.
Headline news, weather, and local information. 8:30